Parshas Eikev. So we're going to try and continue our theme that we started last week in terms of connecting to Hashem. Today we'll talk about emulating Hashem. That's the plan. But what we'll do first is just go through the Parsha, as we normally do, and just cover some of the areas and things that Moshe Rabbeinu addresses, remembering that this is the speech that he's giving the Jewish people during the last 6 or so weeks of his life. And as we said last week, it's divided into 3 parts. And we are now from Naseres Adibros, we're in the middle part of that, all the way through to Parshas Kisavo, which is where we go towards the end of Moshe's life, where he gives the Tochecha. But this part is Moshe's really encouraging the people. And that's really what it's about. And it's for no coincidence that we read these Parshas during the weeks leading up to Rosh Hashanah, which is, give or take, 43 days away, I believe, thereabouts. Which means that Rosh Chodesh Elul is just a couple of weeks away. So we're almost there. So we've got to up our game. V'haya Eikev tishme'un es hamishpatim ha'ele v'shmatem v'asisem osam v'shamar Hashem elakecha lecha es ha'bres v'es ha'chesed asher nishba la'avosecha. Phenomenal verse. Direct translation, or the way we translate it, I'll just read the art scroll, and it will be, because of your listening to these ordinances and your observance of performing them, then Hashem your God will safeguard you, will safeguard for you the covenant and the kindness that he swore to your forefathers. So, Vahaya, wherever the word Vahaya comes in, it means something positive, something good. In various places, and it will be good. I'm putting good in brackets there. So if we look at Megillas Esther, it says Vayehi b'mei Achashverosh, and it was in the days of Achashverosh. That's something negative. For wherever the Torah or the Nevi'im put in the word Vahaya, it's something good. Wherever they put in Vayehi, it's something not necessarily on. At least there's a hump we've got to overcome. So this is saying, if it will be, and then this word Eikev, discussed in a few minutes, because they're translating it here, or if you do these things, but that's not the normal way. Just normally say maybe if or ki is the normal way of saying if or because. Eikev is from the root of a heel. The heel, Yaakov, was called Yaakov because he grabbed onto Esav's heel, and the Torah says that as he was coming out of the womb, he's grabbed onto his brother's heel, and so therefore he was called Yaakov, grabbing onto the heel. So that's the same word here, Eikev. So Rashi says here, V'haya Eikev tishme'un. Eikev talks about relatively ima mitzvahs hakalos, light mitzvahs, those mitzvahs that we tread on, those mitzvahs that, if we think about what are the important mitzvahs, people will tell you Shabbos, kashrus. You're not going to think about giving somebody a smile, as an example. That's a mitzvah. To be kind to other people is a mitzvah. So Rashi is saying those things that we just ignore, that people, and he says, the relatively light commandments, Adam dash ba'akavav, that person tramples with their heels. Something that we just trample on. In other words, we don't take them seriously. Tishma'un, these are the mitzvahs you should listen to. Yes, the big things we do. Big things are what people focus on, but let's focus on the little things. Those things that we just kind of brush away. Good, thank you, good point. And then Hashem will safeguard you, and he will safeguard the covenant, because if we do those little things, and we do them properly, Rabbi Eikev says, "V'ahavta l'recha kamocha," is their klag gadol b'Torah. You love your fellow man as you love yourself. That's the greatest thing in the Torah. That's one of those things that we generally push aside, and that's for why Rabbi Eikev says it is the greatest thing to do, because we need to focus on those little things. So just on that word Eikev, few points. Gematria being the numbers of the total value of the word. So ayin is 70, kuf is 100, base is 2, 172. 172 is a phenomenal number. So the world, as we know it, the rabbis say, is going to last for 6,000 years. 3 periods of 2,000 years each. We're in the year 5785. So we've only got 215 odd years to go, almost 214 years to go. We're close to the end of times, whatever that means. So the 3 periods, the first 2,000 years we talk about as the world was void. There was no Torah in the world. Now, there were individuals that kept Torah. We know that Noah, when he came out of the ark, he brought offerings. We know he was connected. We know Cain and Hevel brought offerings. The biggest, one of the downfalls of mankind was one, jealousy. Adam and Chava, jealousy. But those 2,000 years, until Avram Avinu. Avram was born in the year 1948 after creation. And they say that Avram started recognizing, he was born into a world that was already fully idol worshipping. Nimrod was in control. Nimrod had made himself this god. He was the king over all the world at the time. And Avram at 3 years old recognized there's something bigger. Avram lived for 175 years. 172 of those 175 years, he recognized God. Now, as a 3-year-old, it wasn't the same as a 50-year-old and as a 100-year-old, etc. And the Chazal talk about how Avram, at different stages of his life, recognized God. But that 172 was the part of the Torah world that Avram recognized. Now, that came in from when he was 52 years old, born in 1948. 52 years later was the year 2000. And that next 2,000 years is called the time of Torah. And that goes all the way through to just about the destruction of the Second Temple. Just after the destruction of the Second Temple, 172 years after the destruction, we get the third period, which is the period of the coming of Mashiach. The time when we are waiting for Mashiach, we are doing things for Mashiach, and it's in that time period from then. So 172 years after the destruction, year 244. Temple was destroyed in the year 70 of the Common Era. So from year 244, it's at that point that it was almost exactly then, we don't know the exact date, but that Rebbe Yehuda Hanassi, Rebbe, released the Mishnah. The Mishnah came out at that point in time, because now the world moves from that Torah position into the world of Mashiach, or waiting for Mashiach. And that's when we had, just slightly before that, but in that period of time, we had the Bar Kokhba rebellion against the Romans. We spoke about on Tu B'Av how one of the miracles of Tu B'Av was that the bodies of the people in the Beitar revolt were held by Hadrian around the city, millions of bodies piled up for 3 years, and they didn't decompose. On Tu B'Av, they were allowed to be buried. And so that whole thing fits into the beginning of this period. And this period is a period we're in right now. There's an interesting conflict between secular historians and the way we've got things in the Midrash and the Gemara in terms of timing. There's a 160 or thereabout year difference between when the first temple was destroyed in secular history to where we have it. And that means, according to some, it's very difficult, and many rabbis have tried to reconcile this difference. Rabbi Schwab of Washington Heights, the German community in New York, wrote an article about it, which he subsequently withdrew. It is available, but he reconciled it. He withdrew it because he got a lot of opposition, but he basically said, to some degree, the rabbis hid those 160 odd years from us. And so we're really not in the year 5785. According to that opinion, not most people don't hold this, but we're really 160 years later. So we're much, much closer to the end of that 2,000 years. Mashiach has to come within that 6,000-year period, within this final 2,000-year period. When he comes depends on us. So if we focus on these mitzvahs that we trample on, like Rashi says, then Mashiach will come. Now it's brought down that the Aseret HaDibros, which were in last week's Parsha and were in Parshas Yisro, slightly different as we discussed, have 172 words. Now, I tried this morning and last night to work out how many words there actually are, and I did a word count in Word, not quite at 172 in either of them. I must be doing something wrong, because I've heard this and seen this many, many times, but perhaps just people take it up and don't check it. I don't know. But there's something I'm missing for sure, because if the rabbis tell me this, I heard in the shir in two shirim yesterday actually, I need to check it. And so they do say there are 172 words in the Aseret HaDibros. We'll go with that, subject to finally actually checking it. But there are also 620 letters in the Aseret HaDibros. 620 letters representing the 613 mitzvahs that we have. Some say the 7 mitzvahs b'nai Noach, which Hashem put into the world 7 mitzvahs for all the people in the world, 613 mitzvahs for the Jewish people. Comes to 620. Other opinions you hear say that those 7 are the 7 main rabbinic mitzvahs that were put in place. Either way, we got 620 letters that represent the entire gamut of the Torah, of the world essentially, because without us keeping the Torah and the mitzvahs, the world doesn't exist. And so the focus on this parsha, straight up off the bat at the beginning, is let's focus on those mitzvahs that we trample on.
How many did you say? 613?
We have 613. Now, we can't do all 613. 7 mitzvahs for Noach are the 7 mitzvahs given to Adam Arishon and Noach.
And what are the 7?
We'll go through a different time. I haven't got them in front of me, and I don't want to bat them up, but we'll look at that at a different time, but we'll go through. And it's basically to create a society that is just and normal. The one that was given to Noach was not eating a limb of animal that's still alive, which is something that is practiced in certain countries. Don't chop off the limb of the animal, cook it while the animal is still alive. Make sure you kill animals humanely, properly, and do things in a way that Hashem wants you to do. But it's really about morality. All of those, stealing, killing, adultery, etc., or sexual relations with people, all of that fits into the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, we call them. I've just got the wrong chumash in front of me, otherwise I could find it in the notes in Parshas. Okay, so based on all of that, let's go through what's in the Parsha at a relatively high level quickly, going through some of the things in the Parsha just to see what Hashem, or what Moshe is telling us. Moshe is giving us a message from Hashem. So this is Moshe's words. Remember, the whole of Devarim is Moshe's speech, which Hashem has put into Moshe's head, so to speak, and rubber stamped. So the Torah, as we've said a number of times, Sefer Devarim is different to all the other books of the Torah because it's not Hashem talking directly to Moshe, telling us something. It's Moshe giving us Hashem's message. So if we do this, then the Torah says, then Hashem will love you, He'll bless the fruit of your womb, the fruit of your land, your grain, your wine, your oil, your offspring, your cattle, your herds, your flocks, and the land that He swore to your forefathers. Just focus on these little mitzvahs, because the big mitzvahs happen by themselves. These mitzvahs that we tread on, focus on them, and Hashem will bless you with all these phenomenal things. Everything will be blessed. You'll be the most blessed of all the people in the world. There will be nobody, he'll be infertile, no infertile male, no infertile female among your animals or your people. Hashem will remove every illness, all the maladies that happened in Egypt, all negativity will just disappear in the world. Then Moshe says, well, what happens if you say, hang on. Now, remember, he's addressing those people that are going straight into Israel to take over the land in the next few weeks. And 38 years ago, we had the spies who came back that these were massive people, they were giants, we're never going to overcome them. So he's saying, perhaps you're going to say inside your heart, you'll just think, well, hang on, these nations are bigger than us, they're stronger than us. I'll never be able to drive them out. Interesting enough, there he uses the word Eikev, which we discussed 2 weeks ago. Don't fear them. Remember Hashem, your God. Remember what Hashem, your God, did to Paro. Hashem is with us. You saw it with your own eyes. You saw what He did, the tests, the plagues, etc. Hashem did that, and He will do it again. And then Moshe says something fascinating. He says, "V'gam es hatzira yishalach Hashem elokecha bam ad avoid," etc. He says, also the tzira. I'll tell you what the tzira is in a moment. Will Hashem, your God, send among them, talking among these people, until the survivors and hidden one perish before you. So Rashi says on the tzira, min sheret ha'oif, it's a flying insect, which shahaisa zorekes bahem mara, it would spit, so to speak, or shoot bile or poison at these people. And what will it do to them? It'll do two things: make them impotent and make them blind. When they've got these two maladies, then they've got nowhere to hide, they've got nowhere to go. And so, because they're blind, you'll be able to take over easily. Now, what was this tzira? It was some form of, Rashi in Gemara in Bechorah says it's some kind of a locust that had this venom that it could shoot at people. But the other commentaries, it's mentioned a couple of times in the Torah, that say that this tzira stayed on the other side of the Jordan River and was able to shoot this bile across, this venom, into people across the river, and targeted missiles. So we can understand it in our times. You've got a heat-seeking missile. We understand it from the plague of hail. The plague of hail, the Torah describes it as fire in ice. Firstly, fire and ice cannot coexist. You can't have fire inside the middle of ice. But they were heat-seeking missiles. And so you had Egyptians, mida keneged mida, measure for measure, that deserved to be punished in a specific way. So you had Ahmed, the Egyptian, who had terrorized a Jewish person, locked him up in a tunnel perhaps. Well, we had a heat-seeking missile from Hashem in the form of hail, ice around a ball of fire, that would come and attack him wherever he was. And so as he ran away, you can picture this missile chasing after him, being a hailstone in those times, a drone. And perhaps these insects were drones. Well, they're flying insects. And so we can understand each of these concepts in modern technology, in warfare, and various things. But this was the way it was shown to the people in those days. Hashem will thrust these nations little by little. They will not be. You will not be able to annihilate them quickly. Why? Because maybe the beasts of the field will then take over. If you wipe them out and you've just wipe, you're not going to have time to come in and take over and settle the land and farm them. So then you're going to have wild animals coming in. We don't want wild animals. Wild animals don't come in populated areas. If people move out, animals might move in. And so Moshe is telling the people, slow. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It'll take time. Unfortunately, in our times, it's taken nearly 2,000 years since the destruction of the temple. But Hashem will cause confusion and confound them, but he will deliver them into our hands. The Torah then continues, and these are messages for us. Every one of these messages are really messages for us, for our lives. How do we live our lives? Because the Torah is a lifelong way of life. It gives us messages for every one of us. And so whilst Moshe is directly addressing each individual that's going into Israel, he's addressing each of us. And each of us can take some little message out of this, particularly as we're coming to Rosh Chodesh Elul and Rosh Hashanah, and see what can we do with it. Kol ha-mitzvah asher anochi mitzavach hayom tishmerun la'asos la'man tichyun Revisem uvasem rishtem es haaretz asher nishba Hashem lavosechem. All these mitzvahs that I command you today, Moshe says, you shall observe them and perform them. Why? So that you can live and increase and come to take possession of the land that Hashem swore to your forefathers. So yes, Moshe is addressing those people, but he's addressing us. He's addressing us that if we are united, if we perform these mitzvahs as one, then we're not going to have the New York Times posting false narratives and photos and things on their front page. We're not going to have Qatar pumping trillions of dollars into the American and global university system so that all journalists become pro. It's actually bizarre if you think about it. They extreme left wing, call it woke, and pro-terrorist at the same time. It's a complete contradiction. And yet that's what's happening. Remember the road that you've walked on, that Hashem, oh God, led you for these 40 years in the wilderness. Hashem's been leading us in the wilderness for the last 2,000 years. But why has he done it? Not to afflict us, just to test us, to know what's in our hearts. I'm changing it from you to our. Whether we observe his mitzvahs or not. He afflicted you and let you go hungry, and he fed you man. And you didn't know. Nobody knew what this man was. And today we still eat man. It's unbelievable that we're able to survive. Just look at Israel's economy. and the economy is still flying. Hashem is looking after us, but we need to look after ourselves and Hashem. The incredible miracle in the desert, which Moshe next reminds him on, he says, your garments didn't wear out on you. You walked. Remember, we were walking for 40 years around the desert. Your feet didn't swell. You walk for 40 years. I mean, obviously they were camped. One place they were camped for 19 years. But essentially, we're walking around in a desert. Our feet didn't swell. They say that people who walk barefoot, and I don't know if they had shoes or not, they probably did. In fact, the Torah says they did. But people who walk barefoot their whole lives, their feet swell to some degree. They harden underneath. We were fine. They used to take their clothing. It was dirty. Or the kids grew and the clothing was suddenly too small. They'd take it off, put on another garment, put it into the clouds. It would come back clean, repaired, and the correct size. One of the miracles of these clouds that we're enveloped in. Moshe is reminding of that. Know in your heart that just as a father will chastise his son, that's what Hashem does to us. He's our father. And then Moshe says, Shemarta es mitzvahs Hashem elakecha leches bidrachav le'ira oisai. Observe the mitzvahs of Hashem your God, to go in his ways and to fear him. Now, yira, they translate it as fear. It doesn't mean fear as in somebody standing in front of a person with a gun at their head. That's fear. Yira is awe. You know, you're going to go and visit, let's put it into simple terms, you're going to go and visit a senior politician. You got a meeting, let's leave Australian politicians out of it. You managed to get a meeting, let's say you got a meeting with Charles, the king. Okay? Whatever your feelings are about him, don't worry about that. But he is a person in a very high position. You've got a meeting with the king, you're going to go in there with awe, with trepidation, not with fear. Most people, some people will be nervous, but you're not scared of the meeting. You're going in there like, wow, you just look at that palace. You're going to walk in the White House. It's just the environment itself. That's what awe is. So magnify that. Take every leader in the world or every palace in the world and magnify all of that and add that all together and multiply it by a factor of whatever, and you will never get to where Hashem is. But that's the awe we need to think about. We need to think, wow, if I was visiting the king, how would I feel? Okay, now I'm visiting the King of Kings. Hashem puts kings in place. He puts prime ministers and presidents in place. That's the awe we need to have when we think about Hashem. We walk into shul and it's like, how's your week? G'day, how you doing? Give me the footy scores, whatever it is. You go to South African shul, say, how's it? We had a treat last week. We had Rabbi Blackman here from Sydney, moving back to South Africa soon, go to Cape Town. But being that he had a shul in Cape Town, in Sydney for many years with lots of South Africans, he'd never lost his South Africanisms. And so it was actually quite fun. It was a blast from the past, so to speak. But it was a phenomenal Shabbos and Tisha B'Av with him here. It was just incredible. Okay, so then what will happen if we do this properly? The Torah says, Hashem your God is bringing you to a good land, a land of streams of water, springs and underground water coming forth in valley and mountain. And then it says, Eretz, Chita Usa'ora, V'gefen Usa'ena, V'rimoin, Eretz, Zais, Shemen, U'devash. Okay, these are the 7 species of the land of Israel. So I'll read it in English because let's just listen to what the Torah says. A land of wheat, barley, grape, fig, and pomegranate. A land of oil, olives, and honey. Okay, so we've got a land twice. So different Meforshim bring out different things. Why does it say Eretz Chita Usa'ora, land of wheat, barley, V'gefen, and then Usa'ena Urimon, and, because normally in English would say wheat, barley, grapes, and figs. Well, I left out, but that's one thing. And then the second thing is, why does it say Eretz of the first 5 species? And then it says Eretz again, a land again, of Zais U'devash, Zais, Shemen U'devash, olive oil and honey. Firstly, let's start backwards. Honey here, devash, doesn't mean bee honey. Honey here means date honey. Dates are one of the 7 species of the land of Israel. There is a special bracha that we say, we call it Ma'ain Shalosh, a 3-pronged blessing for these products. Firstly, if we eat grain, as in wheat, barley, spelt rye and oats as well. They're not here. But then if we have it as bread or if we have too much, then we have to bench. And that's in the sixth parsha as well, just shortly afterwards. So the laws of saying blessings come out from these few verses. Because just 2 verses later, it says, you'll eat and you'll be satisfied, and then you will bless Hashem your God. That's where Birkat Hamazon comes from. Benching comes from that. The mitzvah of when you eat bread, you thank Hashem for what He gave you. Bread being the staple for thousands of years, it's changed. The world today is not so connected to eating bread at every major meal. We do because we have, we're on Yom Tov and Shabbos, we'll have to make hamotzi and have challah, but most people don't eat bread every meal anymore. But it's still the staple diet of man. And so for these products, we have this special blessing. If you eat grain in the form of a cake or a pasta or something like that, then you'd say the bracha ala michya. If you eat any of those fruits, being grapes, pomegranates, figs, dates, and olives, then you'd add in ala eitz, which is a special bracha. This is the bracha he's saying afterwards. The bracha before on fruit is always eitz, whether it's a peach, an apple, or a pomegranate. But then, and then finally, if you have wine has got a special status. Wine is the only product where if you take the original fruit and you squeeze it, this is whatever, apples, oranges, the blessing goes down generally to just a regular shehakol. But grapes, because of the special properties of wine, what wine does, when wine goes in, secrets come out, is what they say. Now, wine has, correct. Now, if a person's at, and this is the whole premise of drinking on Purim, and drinking wine specifically, if a person is at a high level and they have a little bit of wine, the secrets that come out of the depths of Torah. If a person's not at a very high level, the secrets that come out are what we don't want to hear. And then the Torah describes, the Midrashim and Gemara describes how different stages of drinking. And it's like equated back to Noach. I'm not going to go through it now, but we've all seen this. People behave like different animals when they have too much. Tipsy is one level. When they have too much, then have like a monkey or a pig or whatever it might be. And it's described by Chazal in pretty graphic detail. You just look at somebody who's drinking and you can watch that going. But wine has an incredible property of elevating. So therefore we have this special part of that, and Shalosh, that 3-pronged bracha of ala gefen for wine. But back to our pasuk. So we said Eretz Soira v'gefen Se'ena v'rimoin, land of wheat, barley, grape, fig, and pomegranate. Then it says Eretz again. So some of the commentaries say, why does it say Eretz here? Because Zais, Shemen, Udavash is talking about dates and olives and dates, but it's not talking about olives and dates in their natural form. It's talking about olive oil and date honey. That's what Israel's blessed with. Now, obviously, you need olives and dates to get those products, but it separates them because the other products you can eat processed and they elevate whatever. These are different products, and so it's brought out. We'll come towards the end of the parsha, and right at the end of the parsha, discuss it right now. Just at the end of Chamishi, we told that we are going to Lases lahem uzarim eretz savas chalav v'vash, a land flowing with milk and honey. We always hear the statement of a land flowing with milk and honey. Many of the commentators there, so what Rashi says, no, it doesn't say anything on that. It gives a very long comment on that verse, but not specifically those words. Land flowing with milk and honey, many of the commentaries say it's not milk from cows and honey from bees. It's talking about date honey, like we just had, and milk being wine, white wine. The milk of the land of Israel is the quality of the wine there. Interestingly enough, in Gemara times, the wine that they drank, the Gemara talks about, the Mishnah talks about the Mishnah in Avei Pesachim, where it discusses what we do at the Pesach Seder. And it's mentioned many, many times, but it says you mix the cup of wine because the wine was so strong that they had to dilute it with water. It was not drinkable, it was so strong. Both, it was very thick and it was very high in alcohol content. We don't have to do that today. Our wines are pretty much diluted already compared to that anyhow. But the land of Israel is blessed, and we see this today with the number of wines coming out of Israel. It's just one after another, just keeps coming and coming. We were brought a wine from a vineyard called Segel on Shabbos. Somebody brought a present. It was delicious. Never seen it before. But that's the blessing of the land of Israel is in its fruit and in the products that Israel has. We keep getting blessed through this if we recognize what we need to recognize. And that was the end of Rishon. We're not even there because we've got another 6 aliyahs to go. We'll skip through some of it because a lot of that Moshe will jump into is the history of what they did over the 40 years. He repeats himself many times in terms of reminding people where they've come from and where they're going. Take care, Hisham Elacha, take care that lest you forget Hashem your God by not observing his mitzvahs, his ordinances, his statutes, which I'll command you today. Why? Lest you eat and be satisfied and build good houses and settle. Self-made man is a phrase we often used to hear. Self-made millionaire, whatever the phrase was, no. All from Hashem. Everything comes from Hashem. Don't settle down in your houses, sit back on your porch, drinking pina coladas and thinking, I'm retiring now, I've made it. That's it. No, everything comes from Hashem. And if you do the right thing, then Hashem will provide you what you need. Just remember that Hashem, Moshe is talking to the people now, he led you through the wilderness where you didn't have snakes and scorpions and serpents, and you would no thirst for water, and you had continual food. That's life. Life continues like that even out of the wilderness. Hashem protects us. But remember that Hashem, your God, gives you the strength to make wealth. Why? Moshe tells you straight out, why does Hashem give us wealth? In order to establish a covenant that he swore to your forefathers. So he gives us money in order to be able to serve him, not to be able to serve our own materialistic needs. You buy something to serve Hashem. You want to buy a fancy car, use your car to help other people. Don't keep that car for yourself. It's not your car. It's Hashem's gift to you. Obviously, insurance details are slightly different, but beware of insurance. Okay. You know today that Hashem, your God, is the one who crosses before you with a consuming fire. He will destroy those people. He will subjugate them before you. He will drive them out and cause them to perish quickly, as Hashem spoke to you. Moshe's theme is continual. It's just slightly different words in each of these verses. And I'm just skimming through. But now he starts going through some of the history of what's happened over the last 40 years. Where we've been. What did we eat? What did we drink? He gave us the 2 stone tablets, of which we spoke about last week. The phrase "Am kashay oiref," that we're a stiff-necked people, comes in. Moshe brings in many, many, many times there. I think I've told this story before, but it's a cute one. There was a physiotherapist in South Africa a Jewish guy who was making aliyah. And he had studied in one of the Afrikaans universities, and one of his professors was a very staunch Christian, and he'd kept up a relationship with his professor over the years, and he went to say goodbye to him, saying, I'm going to Israel. And the professor looked at him and he said, you're a lucky guy. You're a stiff-necked people. You're going to have lots of patients to treat there. That's the Afrikaners know their Bible. They know it well. Yeah. Okay, so Moshe tells he was on the mountain. He came down from the mountain. He didn't eat bread and water for 40 days, but then I came down and guess what happened? You had sinned with the golden calf. And you complained at different places, and you provoked Hashem many, many times. The mission speaks about 10 times that we provoked Hashem in the desert. Moshe says he fell in prayer. Last week he used the word ve'eschanan, that he implored Hashem. This week he used the word ve'es nafel. I fell down, I bowed down in prayer before Hashem. For 40 days and for 40 nights he prayed to Hashem that Hashem should forgive us. Remember, Moshe went up to Sinai 3 different times. Went up, golden calf on the 17th of Tammuz. He went up again, he broke the tablets. He went up again for 40 days. Daven to Hashem. Hashem said, come down again, carve a new set of tablets. He went up for 40 days and came down again on Yom Kippur when Hashem forgave the Jewish people, when Moshe brought back the second tablets. Interestingly enough, the first set of tablets that broke were put into the Aron with the second set. So the actual tablets themselves, or the fragments, the pieces of them, were in the Aron. Absolutely. And so Hashem said, put that in the Aron and make sure that that goes in the Holy of Holies. That was put into the Holy of Holies in the first temple. It was stolen, the Aron, the Ark was stolen by the Pelishtim at some point, the Philistines, who lived in Gaza. They were a people, generally, they were a Greek group of people who had come probably from Cyprus early on. And through King David's time, he escaped there at one point in time. We have a Tehillim where David says, I was behaving like a Meshugana, intentionally, because he had escaped to the Pelishtim. He didn't want him to know who he was, so he behaved like a madman. And so they had stolen it. We got it back. David HaMelech had one of the Haftorahs we have. David HaMelech danced with incredible joy, and his wife Michal was very upset with him. Not the way a king behaves. And he says, no, because it's Hashem's Aron, we need to behave like that. That Aron came back and was eventually put into the temple. Shortly before the destruction of the first temple, it was hidden in the tunnels below the temple. And by, I think it was King Yoshia, one of the last kings, it was hidden underground, well below in the Temple Mount. Shlomo HaMelech, when he built the temple, built all these hidden tunnels and caves and various things underground, some of which we're discovering today. And the Aron stayed there during the whole of the second temple. It was not there. They had the stone in the Holy of Holies was there, the Evan Shasia, but there was no Aron there. And I heard from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, I heard it, somebody told me over shir he gave, I hadn't heard the shir myself, but you can't have a temple without an Aron in it. And he brought various different proof to show that because it was underneath, straight underground, and connected in the ground from the Evan Shasia all the way down, it's connected directly to the temple. And therefore, in the second temple, the Aron was actually there, even though they couldn't see it. It was underground, below, well down, hidden away, still hidden, to be revealed at some point when the third temple is rebuilt. Please God, we soon. Okay, we are at Revi in the Parsha now. And Moshe now says, okay, now carve the second set of tablets. This is not from here, but from in Parshas Kisisa, in Shmos and Exodus. This is the laning we do every fast day, including Tisha B'Av afternoon. This is what Moshe is describing now is the laning that we have in a fast day, in the morning and in the afternoon, where Moshe is told, find yourself new stone tablets, cut them out, bring them to Hashem, and Hashem will inscribe on them like he did in the first tablets. Moshe made an ark at that point in time to house the stone tablets. And it says here, like the first ones, he went up with the new ones, and Hashem inscribed on the tablets words. He came down, Moshe says, children of Israel then journeyed. And he describes the various journeys that we went through. And he describes how he went up several times to the mountain. And then we get to Chamishi. And at Chamishi we have another very, very famous verse, which please I will come back to towards the end. Va'ata Yisrael, ma Hashem Elokecha sho'el me'amecha ki'im le'yira es Hashem Elokecha. Now Israel, what does Hashem your God ask of you? But yira, that same word, to have awe of Hashem your God. Laleches b'chol derachav, go in his ways, in all of his ways. Ulahava, to love him. Oiso, love him. La'avoid es Hashem Elokecha, to serve Hashem your God, b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha, with all your heart and with all your might. So, now Israel, what does Hashem your God ask of you? But to fear him, Hashem your God, go in his ways, love him, serve your God with all your heart and with all your soul. That's all Hashem asks. So we had a pasuk before, I'll come back to it, that said, God the mitzvahs Hashem, go in his ways and fear him. Got a pasuk now that says, what does Hashem ask of you? Fear him, love him, go in his ways, and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. We'll come to another pasuk shortly, and we'll try and tie those three together. And that's based on a series of shirim I heard many, many years ago from Rabbi Khan, based on the Sefer Tomer Devorah. And this is based on the Talmud Devorah was written by Reb Moshe Cordovero, one of the Kabbalists in Sfat. But the first chapter, which is most of the book, really is a Mussar work. It describes how we should behave emulating God. And that's what these verses think. What that's all based on in the introduction is in a sefer called Avas Chesed by the Chafetz Chaim. He wrote a book, Loving Kindness. And in the introduction, he brings these verses plus various other verses that Moshe brings in Parshas Re'eh and a few other Parshas here to describe all these different ways of what we are told how we should serve Hashem. And what the Chafetz Chaim does in that note is brings them all together. And he explains why Rashi says certain things in certain times. But we're just going to focus today on these three verses in this Parsha on how to emulate Hashem. So he says, Hashem your God, behold, to Hashem your God are the heavens and the highest heavens, the earth and everything in it. Only your forefathers Hashem chose, cherished them, he loved them. He chose their offspring after them. In other words, he chose you, Moshe is saying to those people, and where he's telling us as well, from all people. He says, Umaltem es orlas levavchem. Cut away this orla, this barrier in your heart, and va'arafchem lo tikshu or. Don't stiffen your necks anymore. Get that physio into your neck. Make sure that your neck is not stiff. Just be a little bit more flexible. Don't be so stiff-necked. If somebody wronged you, just step back and see, okay, I don't need to wrong them back. It's not saying that directly here, but we can learn in from that. What does Hashem do? He carries out the judgment of the orphan, the widow, loves the convert, gives him bread and garments, and therefore we should love the convert. Why? Because we were strangers in a land. People who come into the Jewish people are strangers. Anybody who's different to you, make sure you love them more than you love the people that you normally would love. Focus on being nice to people who need to be helped. And again, Moshe says, Es Hashem alakecha tira oiso. Hashem your God, have awe for him. Fear Hashem your God. Why? You shall serve him, cleave to him, and within his name you shall swear. Do things in Hashem's name, good things. Don't swear in Hashem's name something to do wrong, obviously. And don't swear in Hashem's name just nonsense. We used to, as kids, used to say these things. We shouldn't say those kind of things. Love Hashem your God. Safeguard his charge, his statute, his ordinance, his commandments all the days. I'm going through some of these psukim like this because I'm just trying to show that this theme perpetuates itself throughout this whole parsha. There's a common thread through the parsha. All right, and then he talks a little bit about Paro and what he did to Paro and his horses in Egypt, and just see what Hashem did. Why? So you shall keep the commandments that I command you today, so that you will be strong. You will come and take possession of the land to which you're crossing. Take possession of it. You'll prolong your days on the land that Hashem swore to your forefathers to give them and to their offspring, as we said before, Eretz Zavas Chalad Uvash, a land flowing with milk and honey, which we spoke about. We're at Shishi now. The land of Israel, the Torah then says, is different to Egypt. Egypt is watered by the Nile. The Nile rises, people build canals, and the water flows out into the canals, and they water their fields. The land of Eretz Israel is watered by rain. How does rain come about? Through our tefillah. Hashem puts in place us to daven so that we will get rain. And that's Moshe's message here. He says, but the land to which you cross over, so we're in the land of Israel, take possession of it, a land of mountains and valleys. By rain of the heavens it drinks water. A land that Hashem your God seeks out. The eyes of Hashem your God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. From beginning of year to end of year, Hashem looks down on the land of Israel. We do the right thing, Hashem blesses the land. And this is something we've seen so many times, over the last 120, 130 years, where for 1800 years, the land was completely terrible. It was desert and swamp. And the Jewish people started coming back in the late 1800s. And suddenly, yes, we had organizations like JNF that did a significant amount helping us, but Hashem put bracha back into that land. And that's why Israel is producing the most incredible wines and everything else that it's producing. And flowers. I mean, Gush Katif was famous for its flowers. They exported flowers to the world. And so then we come to, last week we had the first chapter of Shema and Vahafta. Now we have Vahaya im Shemoya. And it'll be that if you listen to Hashem's commandments. When we say that second chapter of Shema, you look in the Art Scroll Siddur, it says something like, concentrate on reward and punishment for keeping Hashem's mitzvahs. Focus on all the mitzvahs, positive and negative, and the reward and punishment. Now, I prefer to think about things as consequence, not punishment. Because if we do something wrong, there's a consequence. So this we go through, we say this twice a day. The Shema, Parshas, some people do have a custom to say it at bedtime as well. Most people only say the bedtime Shema and Vahafta, that section of last week's Parsha. Some do say all three sections. Hashem will provide rain for your land at the right time, early rains, late rains, all going to come at the right time. We will bring our grain, our wine, our oil. Hashem will provide grass in the field for animals to eat, and we will be satisfied. Beware for yourself lest you be seduced and turn astray and serve other gods. What are other gods? At the moment in Australia, we're almost in September. Football. All those other people that come and play at the football ground at the MCG, and crowds come, 100,000 people come watch some person singing terrible music. I'm talking about the lyrics and probably the music as well.
And the voice.
The voice might be good. I don't know. I don't listen. Okay, then we get to the last section of Parshas. This Parsha is actually interesting. Most Parshas, there's a few Parshas like this, but most Parshas will have the last section called Shvi, the seventh Aliyah, and then the last few verses, 3, 4, 5 verses, would be repeated for the Maftir. So we repeat that so that we can read a Haftorah, which we discussed the Haftorah a few weeks ago. This week's Parsha, it happens at least twice, maybe 3 times in the year. I think it's twice. It says Shvi u'Maftir. It's exact same. They repeat the whole thing because the way the whole Parsha is divided is different. So if you're following in Shul, you'll see that the exact same verses, and it is only 4 verses, is repeated for the Maftir. Ki im shema tishmerun es kol hamitzvah hazois asher nochi mitzavach etzem la'asois lava es Hashem elokechem la'leches b'chol derachav l'davka boy. Same thing as I said before, but very different, like much more extensive in the other. This is the third of the verses that we're talking about. For if observing, you will observe all the commandments that I command you. Now, this is the important part, to perform it. In other words, perform the mitzvahs, to love Hashem your God, to go in his ways, and to cleave to him. So we've had 3 different verses with 3 similar messages, but different emphasis. Then Hashem will drive out the other nations before you, nations that are mightier and greater than you, because we spoke about before. If you're scared of them, don't worry, Hashem will be on your side. Just love Hashem, cleave to Hashem, do the mitzvahs. And which mitzvahs are we talking about here? Those that we trample on our heel. So Moshe is kind of like wrapping up the whole Parsha right at the end here. Then, every place, he says, where the sole of your foot will tread, those mitzvahs that you tread on, but where you walk around, shall be yours. From the wilderness and the Lebanon here is not necessarily talking about the country of Lebanon. It's talking about the area in northern Israel. From the river, the Euphrates River, until the western sea shall be your boundary. No man will stand up before you. Hashem your God will set your terror and your fear on the face of the entire land where you will tread as he spoke to you. So we're treading at the beginning and we're treading at the end. So there is as we said, there's a common theme through this week's Parsha. So the question is, why are we here? What were we put in this world to do? And I think that theme comes through quite easily, because we're not here just to survive, to work, to retire, To go from working and relaxing on weekends to not working and relaxing 24/7. That's not what this world's about. Yes, we do need time to relax, and we do need vacation time, and we do need time out. But there's something much more. We need to shape ourselves in walking in Hashem's ways, in emulating Hashem. So what does Hashem do? The Torah says that Hashem, Rashi explains this, but he says Hashem is merciful, so we should be merciful. Hashem does kindness, we should be kind. How did these things all happen? So Hashem clothed Adam and Rishon. Adam and Chava were in the garden, they sinned, they put on fig leaves. And Hashem said, no, I'll make you garments of hides, from hides. And Hashem clothed them. Just as he clothed the people, we spoke about people put their clothing into the clouds, the washing machines in the clouds, Hashem clothes us. We need to recognize, yes, we get money from Hashem to buy clothes so that we can look good and feel good in order to serve Hashem. There's always that last little phrase that we need to think about. When did Hashem show that we should visit the sick? He visited Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu had a bris milah. On the third day, Hashem sends the 3 angels parading as Arabs coming through the desert. Avram's talking to Hashem. At that time, Hashem came to visit him. And Avram says, hang on Hashem, I've got visitors here. Can you just wait here, please? Just shows us what we need to do for other people. Bringing guests into our home. Hashem is showing us, he visited Avram when he was sick, and he needs to bring guests into his home. Avram died at age 175. We said before, he had 172 years where he recognized Hashem, tying back to Eikev. Hashem comforted Yitzhak. Hashem came and comforted Yitzhak in his time of mourning. And just like Hashem came to visit Yitzhak, we need to go and comfort those people on mourning. Interesting, there was an old custom. I don't think many people keep it today. But it says that the first 3 days of Shiva are days of crying and wailing. There's an old custom. Some people still do it. But don't go and pay Shiva calls on the first 3 days. Let the person get through that most difficult period. Now, obviously, if there's a minyan in the house, we need to make a minyan and go to the minyan. If you're going to be delivering food to the person, but don't overstay your welcome, particularly in those first 3 days. After the 3 days, when the person's starting to, particularly if it's a very difficult death that they've gone through, after 3 days, that's when you can come in more. It seems to be that's kind of fallen by the wayside mostly, and people pop in at any times, which again, the mourners might need that. We need to look at every situation as it is. Maybe they just need to be with their family at the beginning, whatever it might be, but we need to be sensitive to people's needs. There's stories, Rabbi Pesach Kron tells stories where somebody comes to visit someone in a hospital and it's 40 degrees outside, or it's 4 degrees outside. And they walk into the hospital room and so let's just say it's a freezing cold day and they've got a coat and a beanie and a scarf. They take it off and it's so nice and pleasant in here. It's so cold outside. No, the person in the hospital room doesn't want to hear that. And vice versa, if it's too hot, be careful what we say to people who are vulnerable, who are suffering. Just hold your tongue back for a second. And then we find that Hashem buries the dead. Where do we see Hashem buries the dead? Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe was on Har Nevo. He was told, look at the land, and you're going to be buried. And Hashem takes Moshe to a secluded place where we don't know where it is to this day, and Moshe is buried by Hashem. So just as, and we have a Chevra Kaddish in this town that does incredible work in that respect in terms of people who can't get a minyan at a funeral. They facilitate a minyan. We've got people volunteering. There's incredible organizations that do these kind of things. And we probably do need to pay respects to the Allen family. Adina Allen was nifta on the weekend. She was buried yesterday. Her and her husband Shimon founded Bet Raphael, which incredible service to the Jewish people that they provide rooms in hospitals, apartments near hospitals, so families can be with their sick people, spend Shabbos there. They have meals in freezers, ready to eat stuff. They deliver meals to hospital. They transport people who can't drive to medical appointments, all because of these two people. They were given OAMs because of it. Apparently, they refused them. They absolutely said there's no ways they want any credit for anything, but they were convinced to take it because of the good it will do for other people. and how it will help. But unfortunately, she was in her mid-70s, got sick, I think, last week and passed away very quickly. But yeah, we need to think about if people like that can do something like that, we've all got in our own ability to do something for others. That's an incredible venture. I mean, what they've done for the Melbourne Jewish community in that is just beyond anything. It's everything, just each little thought. And apparently she refused. She told them she didn't want a Shabbos box, didn't want to have any attention paid to her on Shabbos. So let's go back to these 3 verses that we spoke about. I won't look inside, but Hashem said, guard your mitzvahs, that Hashem, our God, says to go in his way and to fear him. That was the first one. The second one says, what does Hashem ask of you? To fear him, to go in his ways, to love him, to serve him with all your heart and soul. And the third one, towards the end of the Parshas, says, if you observe these mitzvahs, to love Hashem, to go in his ways, and to cling to them. Each of these things is showing us that we need to go in Hashem's ways, walk in Hashem's ways. Just as he does kindness, we should do kindness. Just as he visits the sick, we should visit the sick. Just as he buries the dead, we should bury the dead. Not everybody can be involved in burying the dead, but at least comforting mourners, at least doing what we can. So there's going to be an obvious question. But lots of people do that. Lots of good people visit the sick. Lots of good people are involved in funeral societies or whatever it might be. Why are we focusing on these as those things that we should be doing? I've always had this phrase in my head that a lot of people say, but I'm a good person. No, we need to be a good Jew. A good Jew is somebody who says, yes, I'm visiting the sick because it's a mitzvah. When I visit the sick, what am I going to do? I'm going to say Tehillim. Now, I'm not going to stand in front of the person, shockling and davening and saying Tehillim for the person. I'll quietly, maybe outside the room, whatever it is, but say a chapter of Tehillim for the poor, sick person. Think of what the person needs and do it. Oh, Hashem wants me to emulate him. Then I'm being not just a good person, which every single human being should be a good person, but I'm being a Jewish person who's emulating Hashem. Just go from being nice to partnering Hashem, creator of the world, in what he does. That's really our goal. So let's wrap it up. So based on what I was talking about in Sefer Avas Chesed from the Chafetz Chaim, he gives us an approach. So I've broken up into 5 steps. Start by imitating Hashem. Kindness, compassion, honesty. Then this will develop into Yiras Hashem, awe of Hashem. Then it'll lead us to imitating Hashem at a higher level. Because we were previously imitating, now we are going to get a level above that because we're in awe of Hashem. Oh, Hashem does this, I need to do what Hashem wants me to do. Then we will come to loving Hashem. We can't love Hashem. Love doesn't just happen. There's no such thing as love at first sight in this case. We need to work on a relationship. Relationships work. The only way relationships work is by what we put in, not what we can take out. And that works in any relationship we have with another person. The advice they generally give, if you're having a difficult time with somebody else, somebody who's close to you, but you're going through a hard time with them, give that person. Give. Don't look at it, well, what am I getting out of it? Just give. Then you will develop that love for the other person. And then finally, we can get to that glue, that devakas, that sticking to Hashem. Then we can walk with Hashem through everything that we do, that we can stop and think, oh, what does Hashem want now? Hashem's with me. Oh, yes, Hashem wants me to do X. Hashem wants me to do Y. That's our goal. Obviously, this doesn't happen overnight. This is a lifetime process. It's a commitment through life. And so it's not just a nice idea. It's really the way of life. It's really the way we can go to Rosh Chodesh Elul, in the month of Elul, and get to Rosh Hashanah and say to Hashem, Rabbi Victor Miller used to say this. He had his 10 commandments of life, I think he called it. And one of them was, every day, now he died about 30 years ago. He was a Rosh Hashiva in New York. Very outspoken person, vibrant speaker. He used to talk about, we spoke about brachas. He'd say, look at an apple. And just look at that apple and realize what you're eating. the way Hashem protected it with that beautiful cover around it, protecting it from birds and insects. And you bite into it and you get that juice and you get that crunch and the taste and the sugar and the sweetness. And then look at the seeds. And remember, that seed can plant another apple tree, which is going to produce thousands of new apples. And the world just continues like that. But just from one brocha on an apple, you have connected so much to Hashem, you could not get closer. So in his 10 commandments that he brought, he said, and I've heard this shir, it's a phenomenal shir, and he said, go into a post box once a day, close the door, pick up the phone. In his words, he said, don't put a quarter in. Just pick up the phone and say, I love you, Hashem, but mean it from your heart. Every day, tell Hashem you love him. The only way we can get to that love of Hashem is by going through this process. So every time we do an act of kindness, every time we choose compassion over indifference, every time we act with integrity, even when it's hard, or maybe especially when it's hard, we're not just being a good person. We're being a person who's put into this world and doing exactly what we're put here to do. Please God, we should all do that every day.